Hello, good evening, everyone. How are we doing? Now, I don't wear glasses. They're not glasses as per se. These are my computer glasses. And yes, I do look like a geek. And it does look as if I'm wearing some night vision stuff. But believe it or not, it actually helps with the tiredness when you are glued to a computer for many, many hours. Okay, let's get down to why I'm doing this live stream. Really, I should have recorded this and then uploaded it onto YouTube, but what is the fun in that? And let's face it, some of you may disagree with me and you may want to jump on and have a to and fro, which you are more than welcome to do. But we shall be reviewing a video and we shall be asking, has Tommy Robinson learned from past mistakes? Now, I know a lot of you are probably thinking, is Manny Cinder turning against Tommy Robinson? Sorry to disappoint you. I'm not, but I do have some issues about this message. So let's just get on with it because this is a very interesting video. So I'm going to share the video and share my face as well, and then I shall pause where I need to, and then I shall point out where I think Tommy Robinson may be going wrong. Okay, bear with me. I don't do as many live streams as I used to, so I'm a bit out of practice. You're gonna have to bear with me. Let's see what I mean? So what I need to do somehow is make that screen bigger. Maybe I could do that, or I could do this. I think that might be good enough. All right, let's go. Actually, what about UKIP? I think UKIP is an option. Why are we not counting UKIP in this? If I remember correctly, Nick Tenconi, who is the leader of UKIP, has spoken on Tommy's stage, and he seems to be saying all the right things. So why is Nick Tenconi of UKIP, who is a God-fearing man, not being included in this video? That's my first question. No sound. Right. Okay. In that case, we are going to have to do it another way. Bear with me. Sorry. Let me... Thank you for pointing out there was no sound. That would have been a bit of a faux pas if I carried on. Share my screen again. You see the thing with StreamYard, it's very restrictive. Okay, is that better? Perfect. Let's start again.
What political option do we have in the UK?
Well, like I said, we have UKIP, but for some reason UKIP and Nick Tenconi hasn't been included in this video, and I'd like to know why, because I regard Nick Tenconi, because he is a God-fearing man, to be somewhat reliable.
That's the question, yeah? And most people would say reform. Unfortunately, I don't see Nigel Farage as an option.
I agree. He's not an option. In fact, I was probably one of the first people to point out Nigel Farage's issues during what he said and did during lockdown, but we'll come back to that.
I see Nigel Farage's speeches about preparing ourselves for the 2050 demographical change of Islamic community in this country, and that we have to make peace with Islam. Okay? We don't. We need to stop that. That's my opinion. So as I look at what political options there were, because I'm politically homeless. There's no political party that I support. So as I'm looking, I then saw Ben Habib.
Okay, so that means, Tommy, you're not politically homeless anymore. So if you are going to introduce a new party, Advance UK, then you're no longer politically homeless. You know, if you were politically homeless, then you would introduce, you know, a range of options. I understand where you're coming from. I agree with majority of what you say, but as we unravel this video, you'll know what I mean shortly.
Ben Habib, I've watched him for many years.
Yeah, but Ben Habib is made from exactly the same mold as Nigel Farage, right? He's made from exactly, they've been mates. And just like how Nigel Farage came along and won the people up because he was saying all the right things, Ben Habib is doing the same thing. They're from the same mold as far as I'm concerned. And, you know, you can't just... Anyway, let's continue, because there's going to be another point that we can address.
I believe he's loyal and principled, and he's continually stood up for democracy.
Yeah, but so has people like Nick Tenconi. And in addition to all that, Nick Tenconi answers to God first. I think we need more politicians that fear God. Not because I'm trying to push people into being religious or into Christianity or anything like that. Just think of it on a fundamental level. If somebody fears God first and foremost, they are then going to uphold the highest principles. They're going to be working for God first and foremost. And then as a consequence, they are also going to look after the people and honor what they say, which Nigel Farage and, let's face it, people that don't fear God tend not to do. They do a complete and utter U-turn once they get into power or think they're going to be voted into power.
And free speech. He stood up for me at times, but then when I sat and looked and I saw Howard Cox, many people stood up for me in Reform. They didn't know me, they didn't personally know me, but they stood up for free speech and stood up for some of the work I've done highlighting Islamic extremist rape gangs, yeah? And they lost their position. They were kicked out of Reform. Howard Cox was kicked out. Many people were kicked out. If you speak against Islam, you're kicked out of Reform. If you speak against transgenderism, you were kicked out of Reform. How can you...
And also, if you support Tommy Robinson, you tend to get kicked out of everything. And what we also have to remember, that there was another party and a different UKIP leader. Well, it was UKIP. I can't remember that leader's name, and he gave many speeches during the Tommy's events. And he seemed like a very nice guy, and he was very pro-Britain, and wanted to do the right thing and what have you. And what happened was the establishment managed to use his support for Tommy Robinson and turn into something very negative, to such an extent that somebody that may have been swayed by the policies of UKIP were kind of forced into thinking wrongly that he was a member of some far-right racist group, which obviously we know is not true.
Have a political party that we believe is going to solve our problems that doesn't even believe in free speech. You can't. And do you know what Nigel Farage currently does? He laughs. Do you know why he laughs? Because if you don't like Labour and you don't like Conservatives, who are you going to vote for? If you're fed up and want to stop the boats and stop all these things, who are you going to vote for?
UKIP. We can vote for UKIP. UKIP has shown Tommy Robinson more support than any other party. You have... I'm making that statement as a matter of fact. UKIP, the political party, has shown more support to freedom, to freedom of speech, to Tommy Robinson, whether you like it or not, to helping victims of grooming gangs, in helping, the working class people get their opinion out there. How can we not have UKIP as part of this video? I don't understand.
There's no other option but him. So he doesn't care. He's even sitting there. He laughed about Rupert Lowe. He laughed about Ben Habib. You're irrelevant, all of you, because he knows there's no other party. Yeah. So I know some people will be upset with this. Some Reform supporters, Reform members.
I'm not a Reform supporter. I wouldn't even, what, on Nigel Farage. He is a sheep. He is a wolf in sheep's clothing. I have been calling out Nigel Farage for absolute years, and now everybody is finally catching up.
Unfortunately, Nigel needs a shock, and he needs to realise that there is another political option other than Reform. And I see that as Ben Habib. I see that as Advance UK. I'm today joining Advance as a member. I've told many people I don't want to be in politics.
Yeah, but this is many people that follow Tommy are going to join Advance UK, just like they joined UKIP and in the past have also joined Reform. And look where that ended up. I'm not sure that this is the right thing to do, but we'll address that shortly.
I don't want to be a politician. I want to run a...
Yeah, but you are a politician, Tommy. This is the other thing that I don't understand. You are a politician for many reasons. Look at Nigel Farage. Look at what he did. People voted for Nigel Farage because people voted for Brexit. So if you voted for Brexit, you were swayed and encouraged by Nigel Farage. And if you voted for Nigel Farage more than for breakfast, you were definitely swayed into realizing Brexit was the right thing to do. And look how that turned out. Nigel Farage turned his back on the country in almost like a strategic kind of maneuver to handicap the nation. It was weird how and what he did in that methodology. So Tommy is not saying not, but Tommy, you are a politician. In fact, I would think Tommy would make a better politician than any of the other current members of parliament. Do you know why? Think about it. Tommy Robinson has faced some horrendous abuse, especially from one particular ethnic group. And not once has he turned out to be racist. Not once has he even kind of gave us an impression that he was racist. Imagine being in his shoes. Many people would even just snap, lose their temper and say something racist or project themselves because they're so angry and fed up with all the abuse that they're taking. But we haven't seen that with Tommy Robinson, and I actually respect him for that. Right? And that's why it gave me the encouragement to go to his rallies in the past and really get involved with helping Raj out at Speaker's Corner when he was facing abuse for standing up with Tommy Robinson and all the grooming victims and so on and so forth. So when Tommy Robinson is saying, I don't want to be but you are a politician. You can label it whatever you want, and whether or not you're standing up, to have votes cast in your favor or not, you are a politician. What you're doing is political. And at the end of the day, everybody wants to see the country turn a new page, go towards a better future, both for us immediately, but also for the generations to come. And that is what you're doing. That is what you're preparing for. But so to say that I'm not a politician, fair enough. You're not standing up for election, but you are in some capacity a politician.
Cultural movement. I want to do my journalism. That's what I've always wanted to do. But I want there to be a political option for the movement. And I hope that would have been Nigel. You saw the appeals I made to Reform. Please stop lying about us. Please stop. Just stop. Be the political party for the country. Be the political party that will stop immigration, that will do mass deportations. But time and time again, Nigel's told us he's not going to do mass deportations. He doesn't care about the demographic change to our country. All the things you think he represents, he no longer does. He's bringing in the left. He's going to be more left-wing than Conservatives. That's not what this country needs. Every other country in Europe has a populist leader who's speaking for the people. We don't, unfortunately. So I'm joining Advance UK. I'd advise you to join Advance UK. Hopefully, if their membership soars, I think our movement of free speech and our movement needs a political home. And I'm sorry, it's not Nigel Farage, it's not Reform. And that is why I'm showing loyalty to Howard Cox, loyalty to all the councillors that resigned from Reform UK because of the lies Nigel told. He told lies about me. How can the man who's going to govern our country, he stood on TV and said, I have convictions of violence against women. He's never apologised for it. He just made it up. He has parroted and attacked with the establishment lies time and time again. I'm upset by it, but I do see Ben Habib and Advance UK as the only political option.
All right, cool. So that's what Tommy said in a nutshell. So majority of the political statements that Tommy made there is bang on. Not only has Nigel Farage lied about Tommy, he's BS'd the entire nation a number of times. And what I'm going to do now is just remind exactly who and what Nigel Farage is before I come back to Tommy.
Where we can get people to get the vaccine. I mean, goodness me, we could even be doing it at motorway service stations. We were doing it everywhere. We should, at a time of national emergency, use the standing army that we've got. We need to rapidly.
Did you hear that? So Nigel Farage is saying during the whole lockdown that the government should be using the army, or he phrased it, the standing army, to roll out mass jib jabs and even using service stations as forced you-know-what centres. That's what he said. You've heard it. Let's carry on.
Increase the pace of this. Otherwise, my real fear is that effective lockdown won't end in early March, won't end at Easter. It'll be May or perhaps even later before we get there.
That's what you call fear-mongering.
Particularly if these ministers who've handled this crisis so badly carry on as they are. If ever there was a moment to call for a government of all the talents, much as I don't like Tony Blair, he does get things done. He does command respect. He is seriously bright.
Yeah, you heard that right. He's just massively favoured Tony Blair. You know, Tony Blair, the person that stands up in Parliament, lies and lies even more just to create war, which ends up killing 1 million women and children in foreign countries. This is who he's bigging up. And listen to what he says about Tony Blair.
Why not get people like Tony Blair involved to help us solve a national crisis? We have absolutely got to up the pace of vaccinations.
You hear that? I mean, if somebody told you that Nigel Farage thinks the army and the control of the government should be given to Tony Blair in order to roll out mass you-know-what, you wouldn't believe them. Like, no, Nigel Farage wouldn't say that. You heard it for yourself. So sorry about that. Pressed the wrong button. So yeah, you heard it for yourself. That's what Nigel Farage thinks and believes. So I agree with Tommy. Nigel Farage should not be anywhere near the voting polls because he is a two-faced, lying you-know-what. So let's just break it down in regards to what my point is. Ben Habib could be the best politician on the planet. Okay? Let's just give him that for this conversation. Ben Habib is arguably going to be the savior for the country. He's going to come along. He's not corrupt. He won't be corrupted. He won't do a U-turn. He won't do He won't lie in Parliament. He won't start foreign wars. He'll close down the borders. So basically, we're saying he's going to be a Trump, a Donald Trump, yeah? Well, look what's happened to Donald Trump. He's not even releasing the Epstein files over in America, right? And I would have placed far more money on Donald Trump than someone like Ben Habib. See, my issue is we've been here before. Embarrassingly, my first ever vote, my first ever election, I voted for Tony Blair. I'm sorry. I apologize to the country. I apologize to everybody. I was naive. I was stupid to vote for Tony Blair, but I was one of those people that was duped, thinking that he was very middle of the road, somewhere between left wing and right wing. And I didn't really know that the left wing of the bird and the right wing of the bird are actually the same bird, and we should be really looking at taking control of the head of the bird. Okay, so I voted for Tony Blair, and that was my bad, and I fell for his lies. I've actually learned from that, and I haven't voted in another general election. The next time I voted after that was for Brexit. I voted for Nigel Farage and the Brexit because I liked both. Nigel fell for his lies, and obviously I love this country. Of course, I'm going to vote for Brexit. There's no two ways about it. I don't want my country to join some communistic dictatorship run by foreign, undemocratic leaders, right? So that was the next time I voted, and I fell for it again. And Nigel Farage came out and he did a complete U-turn. And I haven't voted in a general election again because I have learned from my mistakes, and I don't think many people have. And maybe we're missing, or Tommy is not remembering of what's been going on. So Ben Habib might be someone fantastic, but what if he's not? What do we do? Right. So let me just, before I give you my solution, we have politicians that promise everything to us when they want the votes. Okay. They get our votes, they get elected, and then they do a complete and utter U-turn. Right. And then they achieve parliamentary privilege. So they go into the Commons, they make up lies, they spread lies, they twist words, but they can't be held accountable because there's something called parliamentary privilege. Like we saw with Tony Blair, teaming up with George Bush and starting a war in a foreign land. And then we have lobbying. And those of you who don't know what lobbying is, it's the political term for corrupting politicians. And if you think that only goes on in some faraway African or Asian country, you are very much mistaken. The difference between that type of corruption over in those countries and the corruption in our country and in the West is that they get away with it far better here. So my solution is this. If a politician wants your vote, these are the things that they must do. They need to make a declaration, like a deed, like a will. Before they stand for election, or while they stand for election, they must make a declaration saying that unless they keep their election promises, that they will be willingly tried for fraud, misrepresentation, and make their appointment fully void. Secondly, they must voluntarily surrender any parliamentary privilege that has been awarded to them in their capacity. So in other words, they must be able to back up and confirm absolutely everything that they say and ask others to either vote on or rely upon. And number three, we must criminalize lobbying. Let's give another example of Donald Trump, who, if you were like me, thought he was going to be the savior as well. He turned up one day on stage with Pfizer. Do you know why? Because they were one of the key donators to his cause. So lobbying and donations of this capacity must be stopped, because politicians will do whatever the biggest brown paper bag stuffed with cash asks them to do. They're corrupt. It's as simple as that. Or the alternative is we remove politicians and we do a referendum on absolutely everything. Though I don't see that as going to be something that we can do immediately. But that's three things. And I also think why Nick Tenconi is at the top of my list of potential politicians that I may vote for is that he is God-fearing. And I'm not talking about the wrong type of God. I'm talking about the real God, the right God. And when somebody is God-fearing, they are going to be doing the right thing, both for you, for your community, for your family, and for God. And that is not to be underestimated. And I'm sorry, I don't really see the likes of Nigel Farage and Ben Habib doing any of those things. But there is one other thing that's a big problem that we are facing in this country, and that is the average person. See, the average person is not going into politics. Average person is not going into politics because they're disgusted at politicians. They're disgusted at the political game. They're disgusted at what really goes on. They see how politicians act. They see what they say, and they see it as something that they should stay away from. It's like walking in your local town centre and you see a dog's taking a you-know-what. You know the best thing to do for you and the community is to pick it up or ask for somebody, that works for the council to come and pick it up, but you don't. You ignore it. You walk around it. You should get at least a hose pipe or get the local shop to get their hose pipe to, hose it into the gutter, but you don't. You don't say anything. You don't do anything. You just walk around it. Well, that's exactly how good people feel about politics and politicians. They see them as that what in the street that shouldn't even be encountered, because if you touch what, you get your hands dirty. And people don't want to get their hands dirty. They rather live a nice, quiet life. And that's the problem. Because these politicians rely on you to be scared, to be weak, to be overthinking, for you to not do anything. And to say things like, I'm not a politician. Why should I do anything? And round it goes. And then every so often, we get a new political party, we get a new politician that rallies the troops. I am the change, they say. Vote for me. I shall make all the difference. I am different. And then they get into power because you've trusted them. And then hours and days and weeks later, getting into power, they do a complete U-turn and they give you all the different colorful reasons why it could not happen. And they make even worse mistakes, even worse legislation, and you lose morale. It's happening again. It's happening with Ben Habib, and it's been happening with Nigel Farage. It's happened with the likes of Tony Blair and even that Tory chap that allowed Brexit. What was his? David Cameron. David Cameron was voted in because people wanted to vote for Brexit, and then he had to honour it. But at least he honoured it. Now, I'm going to show a video of Simon Sideways. Now, I'm no longer subscribed to Simon Sideways because he interviewed and rubbed shoulders with some deplorable people that I think are racist. Now, I don't think Simon Sideways is racist at all. I've met Simon. I think he's a very nice guy. I think he's an intelligent chap. Politically, I think he's very intelligent. But unfortunately, I think he's become so frustrated that he's just gone down the wrong roads in some of his interviews. I don't even know if he does YouTube videos anymore. Like I said, I'm not subscribed to him. But there was one video, one message that he did share with everybody at the time and made it into a music video. So I'm going to share that with you guys, and let's listen to the message because it's very, very relevant.
None of these systems happen by chance. None of the way things work, none of that was happenstance. It's done purposely, and it's clever. But it gives us the illusion of democracy. It gives us the illusion of, choice and stuff, and so we carry on. But I want you to mark my words now that both him and that other thing over in Argentina that are both sucking hard on the cock of Zionism, which they are, right, will achieve nothing. And they'll blame it on everything else around them. They'll blame it on the coalition, in Geert Wilders' case. They'll blame it on all sorts, but nothing will get achieved. And we'll have another X amount of years of complete waste of time, and the system will get worse and worse, while they'll all still be beating the drum and telling you how they plan to do this, and you'll fall for it, some of you, not all of you. And at the end of it, you'll feel disillusioned, and you'll get to believe that what was the point in voting for the right party because they didn't do anything. And along the time, something else will pop up, by the way. Another right-wing party will give you some sort of hope. When that one comes up, you'll go, well, Geert Wilders didn't seem to work for us, but this new bloke, he's saying all the right stuff, we'll vote for him. And you'll get the same. The system will carry on doing what it does, and things will get worse, and we will end up in a place that's so very unsafe, as will they, by the way. And Europe, as we know it, will cease to be the Europe that you were born in. It will be worse than multicultural. It will be civil war, because these people, these parties that promised you they were going to do this and they were going to do that, will be completely ineffective, as they were meant to be. These people are actors. These people give you the illusion that they're going to do what you want, because otherwise, if you didn't have somebody there telling you that they were going to do what you want and nobody represented you, then you might do the terrible thing of riot, which I wouldn't endorse, by the way. But if you did, and you all came to the streets and you threw a wobbler and actually stormed everything, and then all of a sudden, I don't know, made something of your own off of it, right? And I'm being very vague here, right? But if there was some sort of revolution, it was a genuine revolution, the system itself wouldn't be able to control that, so it can't happen. So it has to give you the illusion that you're going to get what you want, and then you get fobbed off and fobbed off and fobbed off, and then the next people, they're going to promise to give you what you want, and you get fobbed off and fobbed off and fobbed off.
All right, so you get the point. So what I was trying to show was, wait a minute, let me get my, what you were saying there is exactly what's panning out. Another wonderful, velvety sounding spokesperson, this time called Ben Habib, has come along. And everybody's thinking, oh, this is the savior. You know, all those other times that somebody came along and we fell for it and they did a complete U-turn and they turned out to be little demons. Oh, no, we were wrong. This is the one. And all that's happening, everybody is just keeping afloat the already corrupt system. every time you're voting for these demons, I'm not saying Ben Habib is a demon, by the way, I'm just talking about politicians in general. Every time you vote for these demons, all you're doing is propping up a corrupt, evil system. What everybody, and especially politically astute people like Tommy Robinson, should be doing is thinking ahead. Thinking ahead and saying, fine, it doesn't matter who comes in, who is voted for. How do we make sure that they keep their election promises? How do we make sure that they work for the community, they work for the country, they don't lie, they don't get corrupted? And that answer, I believe, are the 3 points that I've laid down in this video, and I'm going to go through them again. Politicians tells you everything that you need to know in order to get into power and get the votes. And the minute they get into power, they do a complete U-turn. So in order to get around that, we should only vote for those politicians who make a public declaration, like a deed, like a contract, stating that unless they keep their election promise, they will be willingly tried for criminal fraud, misrepresentation, and all the other things that come with it. Number two, once they're in power, they shall voluntarily remove any parliamentary privilege. In other words, we will never have another person like Tony Blair stand up in Parliament, make up bogus facts and lie to fellow politicians and to the country in order to do nasty things like start wars. And number three, we must criminalize lobbying, aka the corrupting of politicians. And we should also go even further and prevent politicians having shares and ownership and going to work for the very company that they were lobbied from and created or helped create legislation in their favor. And number four, which is a personal one for me, I think we should vote for only God-fearing people. Now, I know everybody has their own spiritual outlook, and I'm not here to change anyone's mind. God will do that himself. But those are the things that we must look for in politicians, because that will not only make sure the promises that they make, they will keep those promises, and our votes will be counted for something. Why do you think all these different politicians and all the different political parties come along and this time it'll be different and blah, blah, blah is told and we believe it, and then the country just carries on going in the same direction? Nothing ever changes. The only thing that changes, it gets worse. It's because they're all working for the same master. These politicians are supposed to be public servants. They are supposed to be our servants. We, under God, are supposed to be the masters. But the way the devil works is the devil makes God's children think he is in control. He's not. God is in control, and God has given us, his children, the power. You have to remember that. People think this is all wishy-washy, especially in the West and in a country like the UK, where law and culture is from biblical teachings. Why do you think they have such an issue against Christianity? They don't seem to have any issue with any other religion, do they? There's teachings in the Bible that can change your life. And I recommend everybody go buy a copy. In fact, you can just download an app on your phone, on your iPad. Okay, that is my review. I'm sorry if you thought the video was going to be a negative attack on Tommy Robinson. It isn't. It wasn't. I support anybody that stands up against any crime, including grooming gangs, child rape, and everything else. And Tommy Robinson does that. So Tommy Robinson has my support for those reasons. And if Tommy Robinson states anything that I don't disagree with, I'll point it out like I did today. I'm going to, unless somebody wants to come on in the next few seconds, I shall finish off the live stream. I hope my message has come across loud and clear, and I hope I have been able to speak my mind in a clear and polite fashion. When you don't do these live streams, you are often out of practice. And as a consequence, you cannot always get your point across clearly. My point was not to stop people aligning with any political party, including the one Tommy Robinson was promoting, or UKIP, who I favour. My point was that it doesn't matter who comes along saying the right things unless the actual system is tweaked and changed so that corruption and changes against humanity is stopped. Let me say that a bit more clearly. Unless we can tweak the system so corrupt politicians do not continue doing what they're doing, then nothing will change. I think a lot of these politicians actually come along and they have good intent. They start off just like you and I and say, I'm going to make a difference. But something happens. Something happens to them as soon as they get into power. I don't know what that is. They can't all be complete liars. Something happens to them. We need to stop that happening. Okay, that's it from me. Thank you very much, everybody that's tuned in. I'm going to be doing more of these videos. You can look at my silly glasses. I know I look a bit weird in them, but like I said at the start of the live stream, these are computer glasses. They actually do work very well for me because I have many screens that I look at for many hours on end. I try to do other things and get away from my desk as much as possible, but it's not possible for me. I am required to be in front of screens. But until next time, people, thank you very much for joining, and let's play this video.
There's 28 men starting trial for raping young kids. How many young Muslim girls getting raped in the city? You're scum. You're defending child rapists. They're all getting convicted. They're all going to jail. I'm here to expose people like you, all of you. Your boyfriend is a rapist, darling. Your boyfriend. They're going to jail for rape. You heard what I said.
You're standing out courts defending paedophiles. So what?
When you think of Oxford in the UK, do you think of the world's best university? Do you think of the beautiful architecture? You should think again. The address for this mosque is Mansell Way. Mansell translates as Mosque Way. One of the young English children that was being raped at a house directly opposite this mosque on Mosque Way, a road that's been renamed as Mosque Way. In these cases, one of the victims had the letter M, inscribed with a burning hot iron mark on her bum, M, because she'd become the property of Muhammad. Another girl had her tongue nailed to a table. There's another court case now with 17 Muslim men who are in court for the prostitution and rape of young 12-year-old English white girls. And the sickening thought is that many Muslims would have come into this mosque and prayed, they'd have walked straight out of the mosque and then they'd have gone and took turns with their sexual slave. That's the reality of what's happening.
They're all getting convicted. They're all going to jail.